Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte, and we are taking a look today down in Broad Street, Philadelphia. The Broad Street Bullies, the Philadelphia Flyers, as they're also called. The Flyers, the city of Philadelphia, is having a really tough sports season. I mean, I just watched the other night, they played the Mets. They gave up a 7-run ninth inning. I mean, what's going on there? The Flyers just traded Giroux. There's like a lot of, it's just a shitstorm really right now in Philadelphia, and the Flyers are unfortunately part of that. Looking at the Flyers this season, it's been a rough year. It's been a rough year for the Flyers, as you guys all know. And I look at this team right now. You look at their lineup, you look at their depth chart, you look at the prospects, draft picks. What is the future of this team? There's so many more questions than answers for this hockey team, and unfortunately, they just need a new culture. Like, they need to, like, we're looking at this team right now, and we're going to get to some of the questions I have. What's the Flyers' identity? Let's start off there. Does anybody have an answer? Because it's not the Broad Street Bullies of the 80s. That's not there. This is not that Flyers team. They do not have any sort of culture or something for the fans to kind of rally around. And when you look at the roster, it's not all that flattering either. They just don't have the difference makers in the lineup. They don't have a real identity. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, this is a hard team to root for. And I think it's just one of those things where just things went really wrong for them. They had a lot of tough injuries. You know, Couturier was out for a large portion of this season. Obviously, Ryan Ellis basically played for the first week and kind of yeeted up out of there. We have some questions about that. So, that's the first part. Now, obviously, Chuck Fletcher in the locker cleanouts was very much in the opinion that we are going to see an aggressive rebuild in Philadelphia. And I think that's kind of obvious when you traded Claude Giroux, but that's what we're looking at here. They want to start from scratch and build a culture. Now, we don't know what that culture is. Chuck Fletcher said we're going to need to take the next couple weeks to reflect and evaluate where we want the direction of this team to go. And the first way we're going to see them really do that is with their next head coach. Mike Yeo will not be returning to the Philadelphia Flyers for next season. So there's going to be a new guy behind the bench for the 2022-23 NHL season. So who are some of the names that could be out there for the Flyers? So going from least likely to most likely, I like Bruce Boudreau. I think he fits the bill of what the Flyers kind of brand is. I don't know, the video cut out. Bruce Boudreau, I think, is a good fit for the Flyers. He's kind of that hard-ass mentality. He's that kind of guy that can maybe get some of the older guys going. The only thing with Boudreau is, though, he's usually better with a team that's going to make the playoffs. And I think that's where Boudreau kind of falls off off the map here pretty quickly. Mike Babcock is another interesting guy. I think these are the more likely guys, but John Tortorella, I think Tortorella is kind of interesting. He's been the head coach of the Rangers. He's been the coach of the Blue Jackets. He's kind of worked his rounds in the Northeast. I could see that being a fit. Again, talk about that hard-nosed, tough kind of guy. I could see Torts being that type of guy. I think there is reason to believe that could happen. So John Tortorella, again, if you're looking for more of the older mentality, again, we don't know where they're looking. If they're looking for a newer guy in the biz, are they looking for a guy that has some experience? Again, that's all going to be part of this culture assessment they're going to have. So we're just throwing names out there right now, but something's got to stick, right? You throw enough names out there, somebody's going to stick. That's kind of what we're looking at. And these are the two more interesting ones, the ones that I think fit with where the Flyers are out, or where the Flyers are right now. They're not necessarily the big, sexy veteran names, but they're coaches that are bridge coaches. The first one was the head coach of the Rangers recently, and that's David Quinn. David Quinn was really good at BU. A lot of people really liked him. I think they won the Division I championship. And David Quinn was good for the young guys on the Rangers. And there were some things he had some issues with. He had some issues with Kravtsov, which we're kind of seeing the aftermath of that. Still, he had some issues with Philip Hedl, who now he's playing in the NHL. So Hedl and some of the younger guys on the Rangers, even Tony DeAngelo. There was a lot of things that didn't go well under the David Quinn era that he may have had some control over. So there is going to be some knocks against David Quinn. But as a bridge kind of coach, David Quinn is known for being a good representative of like the players. He likes the players' input, and this is a guy that could be a good stepping stone coach for the Philadelphia Flyers. And I think there is reason to believe he could be a nominee and could be in the interview room with the Philadelphia Flyers brass in the next couple of weeks. So that's the second most likely guy I have here. And the first guy, I think it's going to be more, he's going to have the picking of where he wants to go. And I just made a video talking about the Blackhawks. I'm going with the same guy here. I think Jeff Blashill is going to the Flyers or the Blackhawks. Truthfully. Blashill is one of those coaches that's the better name out there. He hasn't had a ton of success with the Red Wings. He was there 7 seasons. But honestly, he didn't have a good roster in front of him, really, pretty much that entire time that he was there. I think when you're looking at a guy like Jeff Blashill, he's the right coach, and you have to get him at the right time. And I think he's another guy talking about like the best option out there right now for the Flyers. I do think it's Jeff Blashill. I really like him as a coach. I think he's somebody that can help the Flyers get back to some relevancy and some sort of, the thing I've always talked about with the Red Wings, the past 2 years in particular, the Red Wings haven't been good, right? They finished dead last in the NHL last year, bottom 10 this year. But the way the Red Wings play, they're tough to play against in those games. Despite not having the skill or the talent, they're tough to play against. And I think that's something that the Flyers can kind of build around, right? We're a team that's tough to play against. I think Flyers fans would, blue-collar city would love to embrace that, just tough to play against. We may not be the most skilled. We may not be the most talented. We might not be the most, the deepest team, but we're tough to play against. And I think Jeff Blashill can do that for the Philadelphia Flyers. And I think he could get them in the right direction. And he's a guy that, he's available. He just got let go by the Red Wings. But I think they're looking at Igor Larionov. I think a guy like Blashill is a guy they're going to wish they didn't let go. And if he does go to the Flyers, I think that would be a huge win for the organization. So now we're going to talk about the next thing, and that is free agency. So free agency is kind of interesting for the Flyers this year because, well, truthfully, they don't have a ton of cap space, so they're going to have to make some moves so they could bring guys in. But they're also in a spot right now where, let's say you move out the contracts, and you're looking at the names we've heard the most tied to the Flyers are Nazem Kadri and Johnny Gaudreau. Now, Johnny Gaudreau is from he's from South Jersey. He's been around Philly. He grew up a Flyers fan. So that one makes some sense. But Nazem Kadri, he does play the mold of that tough to play. I think the Flyers fans would love Nazem Kadri, obviously, and Johnny Gaudreau. But they got to be thinking, right? Calgary, talk about the 2 top teams in the Western Conference, Colorado and Calgary. And they're on both those teams. So are they going to want to go to a team like Philly? Now, again, that may depend on if Calgary or Colorado wins the Cup this year. Maybe that isn't the biggest priority. Maybe they look at the Flyers and they say, they got a nice city. There's a lot going on over there. It's not too far from the Jersey Shore. They have good cheesesteaks, Maybe they bring in Blashill and they believe in what he's doing. And they end up going there, right? I think it depends on who wins the Cup and stuff like that. But why would they want to go to a team like the Flyers, where they're in the prime of their career, and they're going to go to a lesser situation? They might take the less money to stay in Colorado, so they don't end up in Philly in a 5-year rebuild. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at here. As much as the Flyers would love to add one or both of those guys, realistically, and when it comes to the open market, especially if they're looking at all 32 teams in the league, including the team they're on at the moment, why would you want to go to the Flyers? And I think that's where I think your best bet is Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey, and there's a lot of belief he does want to play in the East, but you're going to have to do a lot of convincing. And that's really what that comes down to. Now, looking at the roster itself, a lot of guys were frustrated. And there's reason to believe, I mean, this was talked about, and this is kind of an interesting take here. I'm trying to remember who is this. Anthony DeMarco. Some within the Flyers organization wonder if Ryan Ellis wants to be there. He hasn't been with the team for 3 weeks. So, I guess you're looking at right now, Ellis played 4 games with the Flyers in the beginning of the year, didn't come back, and you kind of have to think to yourself, even though he looks like gritty, I just don't know if this is going to work. And I think, he's really affected Ivan Provorov, number 9 on the Flyers. He was really good for the Flyers, and without, I think Provy took a real hit this season once Ellis left. He was really in high regard coming into the season, and then you look at his locker cleanout, he just seemed very just like a totally different dude, and I think that's something that the Flyers hope in the summer and a lot of sun in South Philly can fix. But Provy did not look like himself this season. He was definitely the most affected by Ellis being injured. Travis Sanheim, on the other hand, looked great for the team. He might have been the most positive thing for the Flyers this entire season. A defenseman that's always been known as the young guy, the young chippy defenseman kind of working his way up. Sanheim played really well this year, and obviously he had his mistakes as well, but there was a lot more promise than Sanheim than pretty much everybody else on the roster. Sean Couturier being hurt didn't help things. You would like to think Ellis would be in the core of this team as well, but they're not in the lineup, and it's kind of hard to see them as the core of your team when they play 4 games in a season. So you're looking at that as a real thing. You're also looking at some of the guys like Joel Farabee who are injured. You're looking at him as probably a core piece of this team moving forward, right? A big building block to the base of this organization. And then really you're looking at Couturier. So other than that, I don't really see them having much of a core. I mean, you do have Cam York on the back end. I think that's definitely a guy they're looking at as being a top pairing defenseman in the league. But I don't even know how sold they are on Ivan Provorov at this point. I think he was one of the best Flyers for the past couple of years. He sets himself to a high standard. The Flyers fans definitely set him to a high standard. And he didn't live up to that this year. So I don't even know if I would consider him a piece of this team moving forward. He's got 2 years left on his contract. It ends in 2024. So I think they're kind of at a crossing roads right now with Ivan Provorov. And Carter Hart, the goalie, obviously. But even Carter Hart, I think they like him, but are they truly married to the idea of Carter Hart as a starting goalie? I think that's another thing we'll look at here soon. So now, with that said about the core, who in that core is the Claude Giroux of the group? Because, let's be honest, I mean, the answer to that is no one. No one is that guy. So that's what leads us into the next conversation, and that is the draft. I think the draft is going to be huge for the Flyers. Other than their coaching decision this summer, who they select in the draft this year is going to have a huge impact on the culture and the future and the direction of this organization. Guys that they need to look at drafting. I think there's 4 guys in that top 10 that really stand out to me as guys that can, not saying they're going to replace Claude Giroux on their first game, right? But a guy that can get them to that next level. And, I look around the league, I look at guys like an Austin Matthews or a Kirill Kaprizov. And those aren't around every year. I understand that. But this is the type of draft where they aren't the super, super talent guys, but they can develop into that if they're in the right conditions. I look at guys, obviously the first overall pick, Shane Wright. I think he would be an instant impact for the Philadelphia Flyers. Logan Cooley, Matthew Savoie, and Juraj Slavkovsky. I think those are the four guys, the first three being centers and Slavkovsky being a scoring winger. So if they don't get a guy like Johnny Hockey in the summer, I think Slavkovsky could be a good winger that can score goals, that can add that little bit of that scoring sniper mentality into the organization that they desperately need. And they added that with Owen Tippett, and that's definitely going to help next season. But you add a guy like Slavkovsky there as well, you're looking at a really good group there for the Flyers. But this is a team that lacks center depth. So if you have a chance to draft Shane Wright or Logan Cooley or Matthew Savoie in that top five, I think you take them over Slavkovsky at this point. I truthfully think that's what you're looking at here. And there's some good defensemen there. There's Simon Nemec. That's definitely going to get some consideration. But the Flyers, I don't know if, they've got good defense. Obviously, you can never say no to adding another defenseman. But if those four names are off the board, then I would take Nemec. I think you're looking at these three centers and Slavkovsky very, very seriously. And with where the Flyers are projected to draft, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, they're going to be drafting top 6. With where they're at, they're actually in a pretty good spot. You can, basically, as long as they don't get 5th or 6th, they're going to draft one of those four guys that I just mentioned. So, again, we'll kind of see how things work out. But overall, this is a huge, huge summer for Chuck Fletcher and the Flyers. And Fletcher's taken a lot of heat. He has got a team here that's had a lot of, he's made some questionable moves when he brought in Ryan Ellis last year. He, made some questionable decisions, and he might be kind of paying for it. And the worst thing he could go out and do is get a Giroux or a Kadri this summer and super, super, super overpay for them, because it's not going to work. And we know he likes to throw money at problems to try and fix them. You can't do that. It will not work. And I think that's something that's going to be really interesting to see what he does in free agency. But like I said, most importantly, the coaching guy, the guy they bring in as their next coach, and the draft, I think are the two most critical things for the Flyers this summer. All right, so I think I got that for you guys. That's kind of it for today. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Who would you like to see as the next head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers? And Flyers fans, guys, what do you want to see as the direction of this team? What's the culture of the Philadelphia Flyers starting opening night next season? Let me know what you guys think. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.